Today on Ask Ashley, we're meeting with Jack Ryan. Jack is a highly adaptive professional with an entrepreneurial mindset and expertise in technology sales, GTM strategy, and marketing. Known for his curiosity and perseverance, he thrives on building meaningful professional relationships. Outside of work, Jack is an adaptive athlete, advocate, photographer, and writer, inspiring others through his story and pushing boundaries for individuals. Today, we're talking to Jack about remote working, partnerships, and job hunting. Jack, thanks for joining us today.
Good to see you. It's been a minute.
It has been. So, Jack, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today for our audience?
Yeah, so my name is Jack Ryan. I met Ashley, God, 3 years ago now, almost four. Um,
21? Yeah.
yeah, 2021. I was running sales at SaaStr at the time. I since went on to go run partnerships at the enterprise level at Shipyard, and then had a brief stint in cybersecurity before I got laid off. And now I'm back in enterprise sales at Perceptix currently. So I kind of skyrocketed my career the past 3.5 years, 4 years, and just looking to keep that trend line going.
Well, we're going to have to revisit the cybersecurity thing because I don't even think I knew about that. But let's jump back to the days when I met you at SaaStr. You weren't just any sales guy. You completely hit your targets in a short amount of time, and you ran away with it.
Yeah, that was. I think it was the ZERP era, right? So I think it was a special time for everyone. I don't want to discredit my actual work, but yeah, I came into SaaStr. I had a laser focused ICP and a post COVID era appetite for events and being in person. And LinkedIn was kind of at this crossroads where brand was really becoming a big thing and thought leadership was becoming a big thing. So I think it was just a perfect time, perfect time, perfect place sort of situation to, we had the leadership in place, we had the talent in place, and everyone for that stint of time really executed at, I would say, an elite level. And I'm still now I'm looking to repeat that elsewhere. So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
it was a great 2.5 years, almost three. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that you'll be able to recreate that. I see big things in your future. So let's dive in a little bit because this is a hot topic right now. I feel like it's been for the last I feel year or so, and it goes both ways at different times. But let's talk about remote work. So I've been an independent contractor since I started in my career. 20 some years ago. And I've always been better as a remote worker than an internal employee. That's the way I function. And it really became something that during the pandemic, it just exploded, obviously, because nobody could see each other, do all that stuff. But then it became this kind of divisive thing of are we bringing people back? Are we not? Can we force them? Can we not? So it's become more normalized, but also more contentious, right? And what do you think the biggest advantages and challenges are of working remotely?
I think one, Wi-Fi is always a little pain in the butt, as we're kind of dealing with today. But I think that the biggest advantage is, in all those statistics and studies point to, if there's an option to work from home, every single person is X% more productive working remote than they are working in the office. Then you factor in the cost of office space, commute times, water cooler BS, like that sort of thing. I've actually worked, you know, remote for almost 5 years now. So it's not, it's something I kind of grew up in. And I remember telling my dad back in college, I go, hey, I'm never going to work in an office ever. And this is before remote work was widely accepted. And he just laughed at me. He goes yeah, good luck. You got to go pay your dues and maybe you can work from home like one day a week. And then in 2019 or 2018, I was working in real estate, running marketing and doing real estate agent assistant type stuff in the luxury space in San Diego. And I would just work from wherever. Like I just have my laptop, and occasionally I'd go into our office. But yeah, I think remote work should still be the standard. And if somebody wants to be in office, that's their prerogative. And I think yeah, I just don't think the office is necessary, honestly. I've closed tens of thousands of dollars of deals from a van, even. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's needed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably who don't know you don't realize that you are constantly on the move. Like you are in your van, you are hiking, you are climbing, you're doing whatever, and you still get your stuff done, which is amazing. I don't know if everybody in this world is that disciplined. I think there's a lot of people who can easily get distracted at home. I have to be very religious about making sure that when I get up at the same time, I get ready for work, or my office and go into it and work from there and make sure that I stay on schedule and all my appointments. And I don't think everybody can do that, but I do think that they're the trade-offs of the distractions at home versus what you brought up, the distractions in the office are very similar, right? Like whether you're being distracted by a coworker or you're being distracted by your kids or your dog, it's one and the same. So there is definitely, I think, some great savings when it comes to your point of office space or people commuting. Like I get more done in a day because I don't have to commute into the city or wherever's needed. And I've got that much more time in my day, which is great. But what would you say, since you've been doing it for a while now, what are some of the mistakes do you think people make when they try to transition into remote work? And how do you think they can avoid that?
One of the things for me is I block all social media on my phone.
Ooh, that's
And
smart.
yeah, so I have an app blocker that forces me to pause before I open it, and then it says, "Hey, do you want to take a break?" That's something I've been using for the past year. That one's really helpful. It's called Opal. And then the other one is like, I think for everyone, our phone is our biggest distraction, right?
Mhm.
So what I like to do is kind of how you referenced, you go into your office and you sit down and you do your work. Like for me, it's like I started work at 6 a.m. this morning, which is 8 o'clock California, but I'm in Hawaii, right? Um, and I put my phone like in the bathroom. I can't have it within reach. And that's a surefire way. So like when I and to get things done. And then the other thing is like if you're ruthlessly efficient in your time, you can get the majority of your work done in like 2 to 4 hours. That's always kind of been my belief, and the rest is kind of filler. And that's kind of how I operate. So like if you saw my calendar like this morning, it's like 4 hours straight of like account research, like prospecting, and then actual cold calling or cold emailing. And then kind of after that, like I'm like, what? There's nothing else I can do. I've done 75 touch points already, 75 activities across three different channels, 100 activities across three different channels. Like the efficiency piece and the minimizing distraction is a big one. And like I'll even go so far as if I'm in a public space, I'll leave my phone in the car. I won't sit with anyone. It depends on the space, but I think having a separation of church and state, your phone and your laptop, is the biggest way to expedite remote work culture.
That's really smart. With nowadays where you can have multiple screens and all your information up at the same time, it makes it really hard. But definitely the phone is probably it's almost like a little squeezy toy, right? Like it's like a fidget spinner that can distract you all day. So that's super smart. Um, let's talk a little bit about I think what people experienced a lot during the pandemic, but also those of us who are self-employed and have been for a long time, we kind of make fun of it is you're a one-man team and in most sense, unless you're working with a huge team across the internet. But how do you deal with the isolation and not feeling so alone. I think that's a big part of why people do enjoy going into an office, right? Is that they do get some in-person interaction. They do get that community feeling and what's going on with people. But how do you stay productive and networking and not so alone?
Yeah, so I live in Hawaii currently, so I'm like really on an island.
Yeah.
And the way Hawaii moves is completely different from the mainland, right? Everything's kind
Mm-hmm.
of slower. If you haven't been here more than a year, it's more difficult to make community and friends. Like that's just because it's so transient, right? It's something I've dealt with
Mm-hmm.
the past year. And for me, as a rebuttal to that point, to the office point, is like the unfortunate part is not a lot of people create community outside of work and they don't have a lot of friends outside of work. And for me, it's like I use LinkedIn as one of those things. So I engage with
Mm-hmm.
people I know face who I've known face to face, and I regularly text them or call them. The other thing is I will go to coffee shops. I was at a coffee shop this morning. Just the buzz of being people around and familiar faces right from the island, like it's always nice to say hello and whatnot to other people. And, you know, occasionally you do get in a conversation that takes you away from work, but that fills that gap of like being in the office. Like you have to have, I think for, if you're meant to be truly great at remote work, like you got to fill the gaps outside of work and the social circles outside of work to make it feasible and fulfilling. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I know people do struggle with that, but it's something that having traveled all over the country in a van, I've like always try and find via Facebook groups or Instagram, like, hey, I'm in Tahoe this week. And then I have 5 people hit me up because I have a big enough following and people know me. And they're like, oh, let's go climb here. Oh, do you want to go co-work? Oh, let's go grab coffee, that sort of thing. And actually using social media for what it's for, which is actually connecting with people in real life and not just like death scrolling, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting because I've heard of and I can't remember who this was. They were a big CEO of a company, and they used to find some of their best talent out surfing when they went surfing. They love surfing, and they'd meet people out there, and they actually talked about how they would do interviews and other things out surfing because it was just a different environment.
Mhm.
And I do feel like it's when you get outside of your box of work and what you're doing and just kind of let yourself be a little free, whether like you like cycling or hiking or climbing with people that you know and people that have the same mentality, that kind of opens up the network in a whole different way, and then you stumble upon stuff, right? Especially as a freelancer, I try to make meetings. I was just telling my team the other day, I will make a meeting at the airport. You know, if I'm short on time and I need to get to the airport a couple hours early so I don't miss my flight, and there's a Starbucks outside of security, and we got time, that's where I meet somebody, right? Like you just make your meetings wherever you go, and you just make it work, which is great for remote workers.
Yeah, yeah. And the other one is like, I'll use this as an example. I knew where all the high income individuals lived in
Mm.
Denver. So I would go to those coffee shops where they're having their meetings for the
Mm-hmm.
high income individuals and the entrepreneur types. And so when I had a goal of like taking my income from like below 6 figures to plus 6 figures, one of the biggest things I found to be successful was going into those spots where high income earners are. So then when I chat to them, I had a buddy who was like, oh, I'm a Tesla engineer. Oh, I run my own architecture firm. Oh, I run a video business and it's doing 250K in revenue, right? Like monthly. Um, Being around those types allowed me to open my mind to the potential of like, it's not just software people operate in. Like software is this like insular little bubble, and you kind of forget that there's all these other businesses where you can make a lot of money. And so when you see different viewpoints and you hear people making those things like that money and making strides in their own careers, it's really fulfilling for me because I'm like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. Right.
Yeah, they say it's good to surround yourself by who you want to be or how successful you want to be, right? Because if you surround yourself by people who aren't aiming for those high goals, then you won't do it either, right?
Yeah.
So the networking part, and that's a great strategy, and I think that's a really good idea for anybody who needs to network. It reminds me of the old days of when people used to do door to door sales, right? Like, remember the vacuum sales guy? Like, he'd come to your door. It was a whole different way of doing sales, but it also gave people interaction. It gave people got them out of their house. Did all the things, and it was really an in person opportunity. So what you're doing, I think, is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so for someone who's looking to kind of land a remote position, what should they focus on during their job search? Because you're really good at that LinkedIn stuff.
I sometimes laugh. I'm like, why do people even follow me? Because I just like I shit post about 50% of the time on other people's like LinkedIn statuses, but that's just for my own entertainment off work hours. That said, I think to land a remote role in 2024, right? It's a game of understanding where to find those roles, and then it's a game of then building out who's the hiring manager at those companies for those roles. So like I ran through this exercise literally a month ago with a mentee of mine who's fresh out of college, and she's like, "I want a remote job. I want to be in sales. I don't know how to get there. What can I do?" And I go, "Okay, well, here's where you start. Go the San Francisco region. Go look for the portfolios of venture capital teams that you find particularly interesting." So I was like, go to Tiger Capital, go to Sequoia, go to Y Combinator, right? She wouldn't know these names if I didn't have that knowledge the same way you have that
Mhm.
knowledge, actually. But because I do, it's like, oh, it makes it really easy to bypass all the like figuring things out. And so I was like, all right, go look at venture capital, go find industries that you're interested in, and then go build a target like company list, highlight it based off of industry, and then go build it's sales 101. Go build an account list of who's hiring, who you think might be the hiring manager. Okay, so you're going for a sales rep role. Okay, great. Go find the SDR manager, go find the director of sales, and go find the VP of sales and the CRO. There's 4 people you can reach out to. Okay, here's how you get their emails. And within a month, she had 3 job offers, right? So
Awesome.
we were able to leverage my network that way, but she was the one
Mhm.
who did all the work. So, and that's what I tell to everyone. And I think the other big thing is the more active you can be when you're genuinely networking. Like I make it a point, it's just a muscle I've been doing since I was like 13, 14, because my parents were always like, hey, network, network, network. Um, Always be trying to like refer people in because you don't know when that referral is going to come back for you, right? And so like I referred
Mhm.
somebody else in this morning to the company I'm working for, and I was just like, hey, ex sales engineer, he's looking to just do straight sales, not engineering. Like you should meet him. He's got the qualities, he's got the background done, and right. And like to that cybersecurity role that we kind of brought up a little bit earlier, like I was on the way out from the partnerships role because the company is now defunct. It doesn't exist anymore. Um, and I had a friend just be like, yo, like I just got hired here. Like, please be my manager. And this is somebody I'd mentored for 2 years, like asking for nothing. And they gave me an offer within a week. Right now,
Great.
of course, I got laid off 3 weeks later, and that was like a major bummer. But the ethos remains the same of like constantly referring people in for work that you think they'd be good at, even if you don't know them that well. Like I try to make it a point to like sit down with at least one person a week on Zoom just to be like, yo, what do
Mhm.
you do? What am I trying to do? Is there a fit here? Do you think you can refer me here? Or it's a game. It's just
Yeah.
all it's one big game. That's how I see it.
Well, it's a numbers game, right? For sales and for job hunting. Both are a numbers game at the end of the day. Do you find that there's any specific, like the person that you were mentoring, like you do all these connections, you build this network. Do you find that a resume and your LinkedIn profile are really that important anymore?
I mean,
Or is it the conversation and the connection and the referrals that's more
it's
important?
I don't think resumes are necessary, really. I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
all word of mouth nowadays because that's what people they don't want to go through an ATS system and wade through 1,000, resumes. I've done it before. I don't want to do it. I'd rather just find somebody through my network. Um, and like the LinkedIn profile thing, yes, it does help to have like a good profile. That being said, that's hard for people to understand because it's hard to like get your voice to show through. Um, and that's something that I've kind of struggled to translate with other people because like my voice is very distinct. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
know I'm talking, you know how I talk to people, you know how I interact with people, and it may not be for everybody. Like it's shrunk my opportunity pool for sure, but it's helped me get to the opportunities I want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Translating that voice, that's that's tough for me to kind of explain to other people because I've been writing since I was like 10, like in a journal. So I know how to speak and translate it into copy and that sort of thing. Trying to teach somebody something like 20 years worth of experience, that's difficult.
Yeah. How do you think AI is going to change that as well? Do you think that it's going to get harder to distinguish a, a voice of somebody's and what their true tone is, or do you think it's going to get better because some people don't know how to fully communicate well?
I think those who know how to write really well and know how to like the way I'm talking to you right now actually is the way I would write an email, right?
Hmm.
So that's I haven't seen an LLM, a learning language model yet that can repeat how I write things and the verbiage and like kind of the odd noun that you may not see all the time. You're like, huh, wait, like I know that word, but like there's no way AI wrote this. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have that answer. I think it's getting closer, but I don't think it's there yet. Um, I
Yeah.
I think video content I still think copywriting is the number one skill to have from any, like, it doesn't matter whether you're a marketer or a salesperson, but um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
we'll,
definitely important.
we'll see.
So now going back to kind of the network and your community, and you helped this person and you help a lot of people by referrals and whatnot. I definitely feel that, especially in sales, let alone just job hunting, all the things around you. And I've probably tried to drill this into my team over and over and over again, is those connections in that network are the, I think, the biggest foundation of any job that you have, right? Like you said, whether you're getting referred to a new job, whether you're getting referred to business that's coming your way for sales or anything else. But I think the biggest thing that people have or struggle with around that is, how do you keep an active, strong network? I feel like, and I will admit right now that I'm working with a sourdough starter that feels like a struggle. I've done it before, but for whatever reason, this time around, we're struggling together. And I feel like a network is kind of like that, right? You look at it and you're like, how do I constantly stay in contact with different people? How do I feel like I'm making, helping others? And, there's people I don't talk to for a year and then we reconnect and it's like nothing ever happened. But having a large network is a lot of work in itself.
Yeah, I think it takes a certain type of person. I don't think everyone can be successful at it. I think the master of it, and who I take notes from, is Puya. I always just like the fact that that guy calls me every few weeks. I'm just like, oh my god, like you're better at this than I am. But my rule of thumb is if I have a thought about someone and if I think about them more than once within a set time period, that's probably being like, hey, I should go ring this person up or I should go
Mhm.
text. That's my rule of thumb, right? Like I do that with friends, professional acquaintances. Like you'll see me do it on LinkedIn where like I'm trying to get somebody else a job right now. And any status I see that's completely relevant to them, I'm like, hey, Joseph, Joseph, Joseph. Like it's just Yeah, the two thought rule, and I guess I'm coining that right now. Like the two thought rule means if you think of them twice, go reach out to them or go give them a ring. And it works. I think it works out pretty well. It just takes energy, and sometimes we don't have the energy. Like
Mhm.
you've reached out to me, and I was like, hey, I don't like I was slow to respond or something, right? But it's just yeah, two thought rule. I'm gonna go write about. I'm gonna write about it tomorrow.
I'll be waiting for the LinkedIn post on that one.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay, so how do you then, on the flip side of this, how do you make people feel that you're not just reaching out because you need something because you haven't talked to them in a long time? Like, how do you balance that part out? Or is there no balance to that? Maybe there isn't an answer to that one.
I don't know.
Maybe sometimes it is just a I need something from you.
It can be, yeah. I like. I mean, I don't know. Let's reference our own relationship. We have in-a-minute texts every few months, right? And
It's
then we're
because I think about you. Like all of a sudden you'll pop into my head and I'm like, I got to talk to Jack.
yeah, exactly. So it's just I think it's like a bucket, right? Like you have a bucket
Mm-hmm.
of like, hey, I need something, and then you have a bucket of like, hey, like I just want to like chat. And you have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure the bucket that you just want to chat is higher than the bucket of, hey, I need something.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the left one is filled more than the right one. Um, and you know, I spent all last year, I spent 2 years filling that bucket. And then last year, when I really needed a role coming out of some personal stuff, I was able to get an entire network behind me to just go, hey, like, go get this guy hired. And I was hired within a month, right? Um, Job market's been a little bit different this year. And, you know, there's been a lot of layoffs. So I've been wary of making public asks like that. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll see me do it for other people. And it's just because, all right, like let's get that person hired. I'm just going to fill the bucket where it's just like, hey, how are you? What's going on? How can I help? Before I think like I'll probably make another big ask. If it's December, I'll make a big ask like around February at the current rate.
Mm-hmm.
So just it's a constant give and take, but just make sure you're giving more than you're taking.
Yeah, I had a great mentor when I was younger who said if you make those around you rich, it'll come back tenfold, right? Like so that's the whole same theory of like you just keep helping those around you and doing right by them and it'll always come back around to you. We want to thank Jack for being on the podcast today. We had a few technical difficulties and lost a portion of the podcast. So, if you'd like to connect with Jack, the best way to do that would be to connect with him on LinkedIn and to send him a DM.